I want you to picture something in your mind right now. Just a stark, black and white image of a crumbling, old Latin American factory.
All right.
And right in the middle of this image, there is a massive blood red arrow pointing straight down. It marks a tariff drop, a drop from 90% all the way down to 10%.
Yeah, it's a huge drop.
It is, and it sets up the craziest paradox.
Yeah.
Common sense tells you that if you build a massive fortress to protect your business, you're safe.
You'd think so.
Right. I mean, you build a wall to keep the bad guys out.
Yeah,
But the data we are looking at today proves something absolutely terrifying.
it really does.
The higher the walls, the faster you die.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today we are looking at a massive stack of economic data from Colombia in the 1980s and 1990s.
Right.
But look, this is not a history lesson.
No, definitely not.
This is about discovering the brutal underlying code of how the world actually works.
That is exactly the premise we are tackling today. We
Okay.
are going to tear down the illusion of what I call the protective greenhouse.
The greenhouse. Yeah. We are going to go step by step across 20 distinct revelations in this data, and we're going to prove that exposing yourself to ruthless, unforgiving competition is literally the only way to survive.
Okay, so let's start with that first revelation. The paradox of trauma and protection. Why is it that when a country builds the highest protective walls to shield its native industries, the death rate of those very businesses secretly starts to climb?
Well, to understand that, you have to look at the cold facts of the environment. In 1984, Colombia enforced draconian trade protections.
Like really extreme stuff.
Oh, yeah. The average manufacturing tariff spiked to 50%. But in textiles, it was an insane 90%.
Wait, 90%?
90%. It was a perfect greenhouse. The glass was thick. Nothing cold could get in.
Right.
But instead of thriving, the plants inside just began to rot.
Okay, wait, let me unpack this because common sense screams the opposite here. If I wrap my kid in bubble wrap, they shouldn't get bruises.
Right.
You're telling me the bubble wrap itself caused the bruises?
I am. Because the bubble wrap changes your DNA. When you eliminate the threat of death, you eliminate the need to adapt.
Right.
You don't innovate, you just sit there. And to understand why that greenhouse becomes a graveyard, we need to look at the people who actually crack the code.
So imagine a sprawling map connecting four brilliant minds: Marcella Salava, John Haltiwanger, Adriana Kugler, and Maurice Kugler.
Right, these four researchers.
In this endless screaming match about globalization on TV, what fatal data weapon did these four scholars acquire? How did they end a decades-long debate instantly?
They got their hands on an absolute weapon of a data set. They didn't just look at a few national charts. They tracked an astonishing 85,203 individual factory samples
85,000.
over 17 consecutive years.
That is insane. So instead of looking at the forest from a helicopter, they literally tagged 85,000 individual trees.
Exactly.
And they tracked every drop of water those trees drank for 17 years.
Every single drop. And here's why this data is a weapon. They didn't use national averages. That's what traditional economists do, and it's a trap.
Right.
These researchers built a microscopic database of plant-level prices. They stripped away the noise of inflation. They stripped away the market hype. They looked at the naked truth of physical efficiency.
So they separated the financial hype from the actual physical hustle.
Exactly. And right in the middle of tracking all those trees, a meteor hit.
1990.
1990.
Picture a jagged line graph flashing before your eyes. A cliff-edge drop-off between 1984 and 1998 with a massive red circle around the year 1990.
The eve of the Great Change.
A new president steps in. Overnight, he detonates the tariff dam. Every expert on TV screams that the national industry will be wiped off the map.
Total panic.
But did the apocalypse actually happen?
Well, look at the numbers. Between 1989 and 1992, the effective tariffs plummeted from 62.5% down to 26.6%.
That's a free fall.
It was. Nominal manufacturing tariffs went from 50% to a mere 13%. Imagine being a factory owner. You are told your 50% price advantage is just vanishing tomorrow.
Brutal shock therapy.
Exactly. It's pure panic.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. It's like throwing a pampered house cat out into the jungle.
Right.
Everyone assumes the cat dies on day one, but the data says otherwise, right?
The data says the cat survives. But to see how it survived, we have to look at how incredibly sick it was before it left the house.
The rigid code.
Yes, the stifled liquidity of the developing world.
Picture a stark bar chart comparing Colombia's business turnover with the rest of the world. Colombia's bars are just depressingly low. Why is it that in a developing country, a company living a long time and never going bankrupt is actually a glaring red siren?
It's a siren of economic necrosis, dead tissue.
Wait, a long life means dead tissue.
In this context, yes. Before the 1990 reform, Colombia's annual business entry rate was a pathetic 7%, and the exit rate was just 9%.
So no one is starting and no one is dying.
Exactly. We shatter the myth of business longevity right here. In a healthy economy, bad businesses die quickly. It's natural. But in Colombia, there were immense exit frictions.
Meaning it was hard to shut down.
Yes. Rigid institutions meant resources were trapped as hostages. They were locked inside highly inefficient zombie companies.
Zombies.
Literally zombies, taking up space, eating all the bank loans, doing nothing useful.
So a low bankruptcy rate isn't a sign of health. It's a sign of constipation. The economy literally can't flush the waste.
That is a very vivid but mathematically perfect way to put it. Yes.
Wow.
And to identify these zombies, we have to expose a massive lie hidden in traditional statistics.
The lie of real productivity. I want you to picture a split screen. On the left side, you have shiny traditional revenue productivity. On the right side, gritty, stripped-down physical efficiency.
Right.
Why are the companies that traditional economists praise as highly efficient actually blood-sucking vampires draining the industry?
Because traditional methods mixed up price inflation with actual efficiency.
Oh, I see.
The correlation was only 0.68. It's a weak link. The study proved that true physical efficiency has a massive negative correlation with price.
Wait, really? A negative correlation?
Yes, true high-efficiency companies actually charge less. They are lean, they are fast, they drop their prices to win.
That makes sense.
But the ones making huge revenues in Colombia, they weren't making things better. They were just exploiting closed markets to jack up prices.
So what does this all mean? It's like judging a runner's speed by how expensive their shoes are.
Exactly.
You look at the $5,000 shoes and say, wow, he's fast. But once you force them to run barefoot, you see who's actually fast.
And the 1990 reform took everyone's shoes away.
Brutal. So now that we can see who is actually fast, what are the exact rules that determine if they live or die?
The 4 passwords of life and death.
Picture a forensic breakdown of a company's profit margin. It branches into 4 glowing arteries. 1, pure physical efficiency. 2, demand shocks. 3, market power or markups. And 4, input costs.
Right, those are your variables.
When a company is staring down the barrel of bankruptcy, which of these 4 forces actually pulls the trigger?
The researchers built a groundbreaking microscopic survival model to answer this. It's a cold equation. The rule is simply this. When the future discounted value of your profits drops below the fixed cost of just keeping the lights on, the company dies. Period. It's not about brand loyalty. It's not about legacy. The math doesn't care. If those 4 variables don't add up to more than your fixed operating costs, you are deleted from the market.
Deleted. It's exactly like a video game health bar. You have 4 ways to heal, but a constant poison draining your health.
The fixed costs are the poison.
Right. And if the math goes negative, it's game over.
Game over. So let's look at the first poison, the fatal cost of raw materials.
Picture a jagged line showing raw material prices just inching up, and it's perfectly mirrored by a rising curve of corporate graves. Bankruptcies.
It's a terrifying mirror.
How can a minuscule 1% bump in the cost of raw materials become the anvil that breaks a highly efficient company's back?
The model proved this ruthlessly. A 1 standard deviation increase in energy and material prices spiked the probability of death by 0.4 and 0.8 percentage points directly.
Just from a tiny bump?
Yes, because it's an unforgiving, rigid market. When you can't easily pass costs to consumers and you can't change your suppliers, a tiny bump in the price of electricity or steel is a fatal wound. You just bleed out.
So even if you have the best physical efficiency in the world, a slight breeze in the energy market can still knock you off the cliff.
It absolutely can.
Wow. Okay, so if costs are the poison, surely a massive wave of customer demand is the ultimate antidote, right?
It is an antidote, yes. The false boom of demand.
Imagine a massive wave of consumer demand crashing into a factory, visually represented by a diving line of bankruptcy probabilities.
Right, the risk of death plummets.
If the whole market suddenly stops buying, is even the most efficient company on earth doomed to die? And vice versa, what if they buy everything?
A 1 standard deviation positive demand shock slashes the probability of death by a massive 3 percentage points.
3 points, that's huge.
It dwarfs the raw material risk. Demand acts as a protective umbrella. It can hide a multitude of sins. Even terrible zombie companies survive when demand is roaring.
Wait, so a rising tide literally lifts the garbage along with the boats.
Exactly. The garbage floats.
But what happens when the tide goes out?
The tide goes out when the borders open. The crucible of competition.
The survival game. I want you to visualize a split screen. On the left, fat, lazy businesses sleeping behind a 60% tariff wall. On the right, a brutal gladiator arena under a 20% tariff.
The gladiator arena is where the magic happens.
Why is the greatest achievement of free trade not that it rewards the strong, but that it cold-bloodedly executes the weak?
Because execution cleans the system. Look at the data. At a 60% tariff, the effect of true efficiency on survival was relatively weak. It was a negative 1.49.
What does that mean in English?
It means you could be kind of lazy and still survive.
Yeah.
But when tariffs plummeted to 20%, that survival selection effect spiked to negative 2.0.
It spiked.
It's the most brutal finding of the paper. Competition doesn't just make things cheaper, it changes the laws of physics in the market. At 20% tariffs, being inefficient guarantees your death.
This is wild. It's like turning up gravity.
Oh, I like that.
The heavy, inefficient dinosaurs could walk around fine in low gravity. But at 20% tariffs, their own weight crushes them.
Instantly.
But wait, why did the government ever think high gravity was bad? Let's look at the lie they were told. Poison under the umbrella.
Distorted rules.
Picture a heavily tilted scale of justice. On one side, pure efficiency. On the heavier side, a government document stamped tariffs protection.
Right.
When a government steps in to act as a savior for weak companies, the companies live. But what catastrophic price does the rest of the country pay?
The data shows high tariffs created what we call idiosyncratic market distortions.
Meaning what?
Meaning survival no longer depended on how good you were. It depended on how much political protection you had.
Oh, man.
Yes. Protection incentivizes lobbying over innovation. You spend your money buying political favors instead of buying better machines.
So what you're saying is, if the teacher grades on a curve based on who brings them the most apples, no one bothers studying for the test.
Exactly. And when the wall fell, the market instantly began repairing itself.
So what would have happened if they kept bringing the apples? The true trajectory of history.
The counterfactual.
Imagine two timelines diverging. One is the real world. The other is a ghost timeline where the 1984 walls never fell. If Colombia had surrendered to fear and kept its borders slammed shut, would fewer factories have died?
The counterfactual data reveals the hard truth. In the free market 1990s, the actual death rate of businesses was 0.6 to 1 full percentage point higher than if they had kept the tariffs.
Okay, let's unpack this. More businesses died, and you're telling me that's a good thing.
I am.
That sounds like a politician's nightmare.
It is a nightmare for a politician because free trade killed more companies. That is a fact. But it was the right companies dying. The economic immune system was finally activated.
The fever killing the infection.
Exactly.
But to prove it's a good thing, the researchers literally had to build a parallel universe inside a computer, didn't they?
Yes, the 14-year matrix.
Picture two glowing digital hourglasses dripping sand. One represents actual history. The other represents a computer simulation locked in 1984.
Yeah.
How do you convince the world you are right? You build a digital matrix to simulate 14 years of an alternate reality where trade reform never existed.
And they stripped away all the mystery to do it. They took the exact real-world data of 1985. They locked the tariffs, and they used an algorithm to age the companies year by year, shock by shock, all the way to 1998.
So holding everything else constant.
Everything. They proved mathematically what caused the changes. No opinions, just code.
So they essentially created an economic what-if machine, like running a sports simulation where you see what happens if the star player never gets injured.
Exactly. And the result of that simulation is nothing short of a miracle.
The miracle of weeding out.
The 3.3% leap.
Visualize a massive bell curve of national efficiency. Suddenly, a giant invisible hand shoves the entire curve to the right. Can merely allowing bad companies to die magically make an entire country drastically richer?
Yes, it actually can. Between 1992 and 1998, just the mechanism of letting bad companies die under the actual tariffs raised the average national productivity by 3.3 log points.
3.3 log points. So basically a 3.3% jump in pure physical output.
Exactly. compared to the fake 1984 universe. And this wasn't about new inventions. It wasn't about better training. Just by taking out the trash, the overall scent of the room improved drastically.
Taking out the trash.
Yes, this selection effect alone accounted for nearly a third of all growth.
You're saying they didn't even have to build better cars. They just had to take the broken ones off the highway, and the average speed of traffic skyrocketed.
It skyrocketed.
Yeah.
But taking out the old track wasn't enough. The real cruelty was aimed at the newcomers.
The new blood filter.
The secret of entry.
Picture an old rusty sieve next to a microscopic high-tech filter. Why is wiping out the lazy old companies not enough? Why is the test of free trade the most sadistic toward the brand new companies?
Because the math tells us so. If the simulation only applied to the old companies from 1985, efficiency only went up 1.76 points.
But the total was 3.3.
Right. So where's the difference? The new guys.
Wow.
Free trade created a horrifyingly strict bouncer at the door of the economy. New companies couldn't just be okay. They had to be exceptional to survive entry. The low-efficiency newcomers were slaughtered instantly.
Slaughtered. So it's not just about firing the lazy veteran employees. It's about making the interview process for the new hires so brutal that only geniuses get the job.
Only geniuses.
So how high did this bouncer actually raise the bar? Raising the bottom line, cutting the left tail.
Right.
Visualize two side-by-side bar charts, but the focus zooms in entirely on the tiny bottom 1% slice of the chart. Just how high did free competition raise the absolute bare minimum standard for survival?
In the real world in 1998, the absolute worst surviving companies, the bottom 1%, were a staggering 8 log points more efficient than the worst companies in the simulation.
8 points.
8 points. The median barely changed. But the surgical precision of free trade completely amputated the dead weight. It chopped off the left tail of the curve.
It's like the difference between a high school team and the pros.
Totally.
The best high schooler might be okay, but the worst pro is infinitely better than the worst high schooler. The floor is just completely different.
It's a completely different floor.
So the weak died. But what happened to the ones who survived? Did they just coast? Awakening of the incumbents.
Forced potential.
Picture a battered, bruised company suddenly glowing with hyper-accelerated growth as it faces a massive wave of imported goods. For the companies that didn't die, did they survive because they were born geniuses, or because the terror of foreign competition mutated them into monsters?
The terror mutated them. A difference in differences model proved that dropping tariffs from 60% to 20% literally forced the surviving companies to increase their own internal efficiency by an average of 2.8 log points.
2.8 points of internal growth.
Yes. Survival wasn't static. The threat of imports forced lazy executives to modernize, to innovate, to sweat. They achieved self-salvation through sheer terror.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like putting a shark in a fish tank.
I love this analogy.
The fish don't just swim the same way. They evolve to swim faster because death is inches away.
Death is right there. And as they swam faster, the very fabric of the market began to warp around them.
Resources grow eyes. The ruthless restructuring.
Yes.
Imagine two pillars representing market share. Watch the money literally drain out of the weak pillar and flow upward into the strong pillar. How does a truly free market give resources eyes, allowing money and labor to automatically hunt down the most ruthless and efficient masters?
Well, in a protected market, big doesn't mean good.
Right.
But after the reform, the strong were heavily rewarded with massive market share, and the weak were brutally starved. When tariffs dropped to 20%, the mathematical link between a company's efficiency and its market share jumped from a 0.30 correlation to 0.36.
It jumped. So instead of feeding the dog and the tapeworm equally, the market suddenly starved the tapeworm and gave all the meat to the dog.
That's it exactly. Starve the tapeworm.
And what is the actual dollar value of starving the tapeworm? The leap in allocative efficiency.
Reshaping the map.
Picture a giant puzzle magically reassembling itself, with a bright green arrow rocketing upwards showing wealth creation out of thin air. Without inventing a single new technology or building a single new machine, how much pure wealth can be created just by giving the tools to the right people?
The data shows that merely reallocating resources from the bad companies to the good ones spiked overall efficiency by an incredible 7.8 log points.
7.8.
Yes. This is the magic trick of economics. You don't need more capital. You just need to stop giving capital to idiots.
It's like a kitchen. You don't need to buy a better stove. You just need to take the spatula away from the guy burning the eggs and give it to the Michelin star chef.
Move the spatula.
And when you add the Michelin chef to the dead zombies, you get the ultimate number, the ultimate leap, the 8.2% nirvana.
Monument.
Picture a massive glowing monument building itself on screen. Two pillars, resource allocation and internal growth, fusing into one massive 8.2% tower.
Right.
If we take all this pain, all these bankruptcies, and all this terror, and sum it up, sum it all up, what is the final verdict of free trade?
The 40% drop in tariffs ultimately increased the total productivity of the entire manufacturing industry by a massive 8.2 log points.
Over 8%.
Yes. The vast majority of this 8.2 leap wasn't from companies getting better. It was from moving resources to the right places and letting the bad places burn. It was a complete industrial rebirth.
So the pain was absolutely mathematically worth it. It wasn't the apocalypse. It was an extreme detox.
An extreme detox.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the terrifying reality of today.
The cycle of history. Are we rebuilding the greenhouse? I want you to look at a stark, chilling split screen. On the left, the sepia-toned high-tariff walls of the 1930s Great Depression. On the right, high-def news footage of today's fractured, tariff-obsessed global map.
We're seeing it everywhere.
As modern countries frantically rebuild massive tariff walls today, are they actually committing economic suicide while thinking they're saving themselves?
The Colombia data is the prophecy here. Artificial protection lowers industrial efficiency by 3 to 8%. It suffocates the country in a comfortable, rotting greenhouse.
But politicians love it.
Politicians love tariffs because saving jobs looks good on TV. But the math doesn't care about TV. The data proves that protecting yesterday's weak companies literally chokes tomorrow's strong companies to death.
So what you're saying is every time we lay a brick to build a wall against the world, we are just bricking ourselves inside a tomb.
We are building our own mausoleum.
Wow. Thank you for joining this intense deep dive into the underlying code of survival and markets. Before you go, think about this not just for a country, but for yourself, you, the person listening. Where in your own career or life have you built a 90% tariff wall to protect yourself from competition?
Yeah, that's a tough question.
Are you living in a comfortable greenhouse right now? Because the data is clear. If you aren't testing yourself against the cold wind of the open market, your personal efficiency isn't just plateauing, you are slowly dying. Think about that. We'll see you next time.